Wildflower friend, we are back for another episode, and I have a bit of a confession. This episode was going to be super, air quotes, legit about how to get your foot in the door when working with hotels. And just being the splenic projector that I am, it was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are not going to talk about that today. There are other more important things to talk about. And there is an abundance and overflow of how to get your foot in the door when it comes to working with hotels. So you can go and check out previous seasons of this podcast. You can watch my free masterclass. You can put some money down and invest in yourself and learn how to actually do it because of the florists have gone before you. There is proof. There is an abundance of proof. So without further ado, I've totally just changed up what this podcast episode is going to be about today. And I literally think it's going to be an incredible conversation that we all need to have. And I really hope that it encourages you to go big next year, to go big tomorrow. Like wherever you're at the time of this recording, we are in December. So we are literally coming to a close of a year and thinking about what worked, what didn't work. Some of us are cruising. Some of us are like ready for the year to be over. Some of us are still totally celebrating. And what I do want to say is time is just like a man-made, made-up thing. I'm not really sure that this is going to be the riff I'm going to go on in today's episode, but just as a friendly reminder, you're exactly where you're meant to be in this moment. So don't even think twice, okay? So here we go. As we're starting to go into this new year and as we're starting to look back and reflect of where it is that we've been, today I want to talk about what are the best lessons that I have learned by taking a risk. Because as entrepreneurs, in fact, you know what? I am going to like literally look up this definition because it blew my mind when I investigated entrepreneur. I want to give you the definition of an entrepreneur. A person who organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. So I want you to think about that for a second. It's not an entrepreneur who creates a new way of doing things, or an entrepreneur that's a trailblazer and gives us new solutions, or an entrepreneur is an industry disruptor and shows us how there could be more efficient ways to get to the final destination. No, literally the definition of entrepreneur is just that these are really crazy psychos out there running around thinking that they know better than the collective, and that they're just, in order to prove so, they're going to take on greater than normal financial risks in order to do that. So I just thought today's episode could be so much more beneficial if we just kind of pulled back the veil on the idea of risk. And so my number one lesson as I look back on this year and what I've learned by taking risks is that I am my best investment and my highest ROI. And what I mean by that is, I'm just organizing myself here. What I mean by that is I can invest in the stock market. I can put away money in savings. I can buy a house. I can invest in real estate. But how many of us, the first time that we think about stashing some money away, is like, you know what, I'm going to put it back into me? Probably like maybe 0.5% of us, because we're not taught that. We're taught put away money for a rainy day. We're taught make sure you have a plan B. We're taught make sure you have a savings that you can always fall back on. Make sure you don't have too much cash rolling around. You have enough cash, but not too much cash. Now we have inflation. And like we're always just terrified to make this money and then figure out, okay, where do I stash it? Where do I invest it? I don't want to get it wrong. And one, I think that's energetically really screwing us up and what it is that we desire to receive. And two, like you are your best investment. Like any money I have ever put into myself, and like think about this, like any money you've ever put in yourself, have you ever let yourself down? No, You've learned the next steps that you needed to. You've moved forward in your business, whether that was maybe feeling expanded by the rent you were paying, the employees you were hiring, the coach you hired, the program you invested in. Like, these are all my greatest return on investments. Like, when I just look at education alone, spending like $9,000 with someone to learn how to run an online program was freaking terrifying. I had no cash flow coming in. We were in the middle of a pandemic, but I was like, I don't know how to do this. I know I have to pay one way or the other. So I'm either going to pay in like a bunch of learning curves and time, or I'm going to pay up front and hopefully get there faster and then tweak in a way that feels good to me. And so since then, like, I've made 6 figures with my online program, like from a $9,000 investment. Like, I would say that's a really good return on investment. When I first started my floral design business, I had like $18,000 I had saved up to put into this business. And I was terrified. I was terrified to see it dwindle down. I was like, oh my God, what if I don't make it back and everyone's going to be right? And I was stupid for even trying. I'm one of these weirdos that take unnecessary financial risks and then call myself an entrepreneur. But like 7 years later, 7 figures later, like, do I care about the $18,000? No, but it was required. And I honor that version of me that took that risk because that was scary. I did not have proof that it was going to work. And this is where a lot of us get stuck. And so my greatest lesson, and just a reminder to us all, is that you are your greatest return on investment. Like, so many people want to go invest in the S&P 500. And I'm sure you've maybe heard this phrase going around on the interwebs that it's like, no, I invest in SME first, and then I'll go and invest later. So if you have money, if you're worried about what to do with your money, if you desire to invest in yourself, but you feel like, what if I just mess it up? What if I lose it all? Then I just really encourage you to think back at a time that you let yourself down, because I am willing to bet that it probably hasn't happened. And that means it probably won't happen. Now, the next thing I want to talk about when we are thinking about risks that we're taking in our lives and in our businesses is that I have to go first in order to lead the change that I want to see in my life. And this feels really risky. So I'll take my example of personal development, my personal development journey. There was a few years ago that I found myself really not in a good place. I was very angry. I was very bitter. I was very resentful. I had all the things, quote unquote, that I thought I was supposed to have and do and say, and I just hated it. It was like I built a beautiful cage for myself. And without going into too much detail about what the specifics were, because they don't really matter in this example, I made the decision to start investing in myself, to start learning about myself, to start trying to just become aware of different types of habits I had and how my interpersonal relationships were, and started becoming aware of unresolved traumas. And believe me, it's like a very slippery slope when you start diving into yourself. But it's a very beautiful, beautiful process. And if you've been thinking about wanting to kind of go a little bit deeper with yourself, I highly encourage you to do that, because nothing feels greater of a reward than truly understanding who you are and loving yourself for who you are. Here's the little tricky part that nobody really explained to me. When I started doing this work, I expected everyone else to do this work, and I became somewhat of like a little wannabe guru. Walking around very angry at people that weren't doing the work, and they weren't validating me, and I wasn't seeing the change that I was so desperately wanting and was promised. And it wasn't until one day I just made the decision. Like, if I want to have the greatest love affair of my life, that starts with me. I have the desire. And the desires are given to us for a reason. Like, we also forget, like, we are the catalyst for other people's change. And what happens is when we start changing, we just expect everyone else to change around us. But like, when was the last time that worked really well for you? Like, it doesn't work like that. And so honoring that desire and saying like, okay, well, how do I have the greatest love affair in my life? I'm like, I've been married for X amount of years and it's okay, but I hate this and this annoys me. And I wonder all the time if I made the right decision and. It's like, well, how am I the best partner that my partner deserves? And how do I operate in this relationship? How many things do I do subconsciously that really aren't too cool. Like expectations, what kind of expectations do I set on my partner? What do I withhold from my partner? Am I vulnerable? Am I looking for connection? Am I open to trying new things in my relationship and to see a different perspective? Am I truly accepting of my partner? So it's in these moments that we realize that we have to go first in order to see the change that we're desiring to see. So if it hasn't been done before, it just means that it hasn't been done before. It doesn't mean that it can't be done. And this is where I feel like a lot of us get tripped up. So if there's something in your business you're wanting to be seen differently, maybe the way that you show up, maybe how you're pricing, or in your family or in your bank account, like you have to go first. Like nobody is going to do that work for you, as much as that sucks, because that would definitely make it a lot easier. But once you realize that you get to go first, like this is an opportunity. This is amazing. It's like, think about like without Coco Chanel, like we wouldn't have really stylish pantsuits, okay? But when she made these stylish pantsuits, and I'm just being facetious, she's given us so much more than just pantsuits. But she was at a time where women didn't wear pants. And she was like, screw this. I don't need to be married. I'm going to like go into fashion. I'm going to be amazing at it. I'm going to design the most incredible pieces of clothing and bags and footwear, etc. And like she created a name for herself. She created a style. She became an icon. Still to this day, like so many years later after she's passed and after her predecessors have passed, like there is an incredible name and legacy behind Chanel. So it's remembering we get to go first. So if there's something you want to see changed, you need to go first. Go and change it. And I promise you, and it will blow your mind, and this is where the magic is, as you trust in your own power and you trust in the power of those around you, they will also they will either sync up with you and walk this path with you and be like, where are we going? Or they will slowly fall to the wayside. And they will say, you know what, I got to hang back. This is not for me. I don't know who this person is. This feels too threatening. And remember, these are all like trauma responses. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person or that they don't mean well or they're slow. Nothing like that. Like we're just all on our own timelines. So it starts with us. Clean up your side of the street. Stop pointing at their side of the street and how they haven't done their work, and just start walking. And they will walk with you, or they will slowly disappear in the background. Now, another thing that I have learned by taking risks is I cannot ask of others what I have not done for myself. I don't know, when that first downloaded for me, I was like, oh, that's a big one. That's a big one. So for me, that especially is true when it comes to my pricing and when it comes to the type of relationships that I have in my life, and when it comes just to the lifestyle I've created for myself. I cannot ask someone to pay a price that I myself have not invested in myself before. That does not feel energetically aligned for me. It does not feel an integrity to me. So if we're out there wondering like, why aren't people buying our stuff? Like it's so amazing and it's a great price, but deep down inside we're like, I've never bought something this expensive, or I've never invested in myself like this, or I don't know if I would buy this. That is like really like no, like static on a radio. Like that's totally messing up with all the things that the universe wants to send you. And it's by taking those risks, by saying, you know what, I honor myself and I'm worthy of investing in, like heavily investing in, because I know I'm my greatest return on investment. Then you are able to ask of others to do the same because you've done it for yourself. You've gone first. So another thing, when I was thinking about this, I'm like, okay, what have I learned by taking a risk? I have never let myself down so far, so why would I start now? And as you find yourself growing, especially as an entrepreneur, because remember, you're this weirdo that takes unreasonable financial risks. It's such a sad, basic definition of an entrepreneur, but it's fine. Clearly, I hope this does not activate anyone, but clearly an employee wrote that, not an entrepreneur. Okay, so as we're running around taking all these unnecessary financial risks, you will start to evolve as a human as you are expanding to your limits, because by the way, that is required. Otherwise, your just dreams die in your comfort zone because you're never really expanding outside what you already know, expanding outside your realm. And you will start to come up with these affirmations, these like mantras, whatever you want to call it, sayings. For a while, I used to post them around my house in very like random places, like when I go to pull out my toothbrush. Now there's several phrases that I just use interchangeably, and you will slowly find yours. And if you want to adapt some of mine and that feels good to you, amazing. If you can't get behind them, please release them, let them go, because this is not the homework that you need to drill into your brain. This is just an invitation that you are allowed to start reminding yourself of the direction you want to move forward in. So if you find yourself nervous of taking risk or afraid of taking risks, like, first of all, that's a natural like human response. That doesn't mean anything. That's like me saying that when you cry, it means something's bad. This is a very basic thing that we are taught as children. This is not the truth. So I want you to just remind yourself that I've never let myself down so far, so why would I start now? Like, I'm turning 35 in a few days, and when I look back on the life that I've led, it has been many times riddled with anxiety, riddled with the fear of getting it wrong, riddled with the fear of hurting someone, of not achieving my goals, of not doing the best that I could do. And if there was one thing I could go back and tell smaller versions of myself, younger versions of myself, it would be like, we've never let ourselves down. Like, why would we start now? Like, we've totally got this. Either you're going to get exactly the result you wanted, the lesson you needed, and either way, you're going to be totally okay. Like, either way. And I know if you're listening to this and you've been in my world and you really have been vibing with what I've been saying, I know you have overcome something really substantial in your life. I know you can, in this moment, pick like one thing that you're like, you know what? I did not die. That did not break me. In fact, here are all the life lessons that I learned from that gave me the confidence to step into the person I am today. And so remember that those versions of you that got you to where you are today. And remember, you're just another version of where you're going to be to your higher self in the next year, 5 years, 50 years, if we're also lucky to live such long, beautiful, prosperous lives. So you haven't let yourself down so far, so why would you start now? All right, so another great lesson that I learned by taking risks is to honor the seasons in my life versus placing a meaning on them, knowing that they are all required for the growth that I am seeking. So here's an example. At the beginning of this year, I told the universe, I was like, I want to be an exceptional leader. I felt like after about a year of diving in deep, working with really phenomenal leaders in my own life, I felt like I was really ready to take on my next level of leadership. And if you've been in my world now for even a couple of years, because the Hotel Florist is relatively new, still very new, and I think the banks would essentially call this still a startup, or maybe we just exited the startup phase. But even if you've known me personally for a number of years, like, I'm sure you can see the evolution. The way that I speak is different. The way that I hold myself is different. The way that I trust and I create space for other people is different. And so at the beginning of this year, I was like, all right, universe, like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go big. Let's do this. And the universe is like, all right, girl, let's write a book. I was like, no, I don't want to write a book. I want to go and lead people. Okay, great, go write a book. I'm like, yeah, I don't have time to write a book. Like, there's things I want to do. I want to be on the internet. I want to create things. Like, I want to help people write a book. I'm like, okay, fine. I don't know about you, but this is literally what happens in my life. So I go and enroll in a course. I literally learn how to self-publish. In 6 weeks, I hire a phenomenal editor who has published many famous books. I'm like, I don't know where all this money is going to come from. Here, please take my money. Like, I'm going to trust in myself. I was told to write a book. Let's write a book. And I hire this editor in February, and I'm like, okay, the book is going to be published in April. I can laugh now, but oh my gosh, I have had so many seasons of life with this book experience. So I'm just using this as an example because I'm sure there's something that you're thinking of right now where you're like, okay, I kind of get that. That makes sense, because you can apply it to what you're going through. And so my editor is very kind, and she's like, I admire your ambition. I'm like, that's great. You don't know who I am. Like, I get shit done. Like, let's go. I can write a book in 2 months. Well, let me tell you, it's December. I have a third of the book written. Here's what I didn't know. There was going to be so many seasons of growth. Like, there were seasons of just processing. There were seasons of peeling back layers. There were seasons of intense grief. There were seasons of anger. By the way, I'm writing a memoir on how I broke the cycle of poverty, abuse, and trauma. And so, in sharing my story of basically the hero archetype of where I've come from and where I am now. And I'm writing it for several reasons, but this is not a thing about the book, but I just wanted to interject here in case you're like, what, a book? What are you talking about? Okay, so there was this season, like I had to go through all the seasons. Like spring, I'm excited, I'm going to create this thing. That's when I hired, got all the people on board, got a team. Summer, I'm like, yeah, we're in this. I'm writing. I'm doing writing prompts. Fall, I'm like, I'm kind of going to go inwards now. I don't know if this was a good idea. And then like winter was like dormant. Like I can't write for 3 weeks. I had migraines all the time. Like it was just, you have to honor your season. Now I have an amazing, like really solid third part of the book. I'm starting on my second and third parts of the book. It will be published within a year. And I am so insanely proud of it. But there was a time that I literally had a nervous breakdown because my inner child did not feel good enough that we did not honor our word, that we did not publish a book this year, and therefore we could not be a leader, and now we're behind on life, and now we were set up to fail, and just all the feelings. Until I let her have her moment. And I saw her and I loved her and I reassured her that everything was going to be okay. And if right now you're like, this just got real woo-woo for a Florist podcast. Sorry about that. But sorry, not sorry. Like inner child work will change your life. And, after being allowed to do that, I just asked her and I asked myself, like, what if we just didn't place meaning on our seasons? Like, what if we just accepted them as being required for what we were actually creating and who we were becoming? Because I can tell you without a doubt, I am a much better leader, the leader that I had asked for at the beginning of this year because of the book. It wasn't because I wrote and published a book. It was because I showed up authentically. I was vulnerable. I was willing to do the healing. I was willing to decondition a lot of patterns in my life that were not serving the lifestyle and the quality of life I wanted to have moving forward. And that's what matters, not that a book was published this year. So, taking a risk, honor the seasons in your life versus placing meaning on them, and remember that they are all required for the next level of growth that you are seeking. Okay, so another lesson I've learned by taking a risk is that the moment you look for outside validation, i.e. someone else's opinion, you are outside of your personal power. You are literally saying, hi, save me. Hi, I don't know. You know better. Tell me what to do. And this is why the clients that I love working with the most show up. One, they're self-led. They do all the work. All the success that I have with my clients, that is 100% their work, their commitment, their ability to walk with fear, their compounding courage blocking that they've done. I have just been someone to walk the path with them, someone to remind them of their power, someone to share from previous experiences to help this go a little faster, be a little easier. But by no means are my clients showing up saying, tell me what to do, because they already know what to do. And if they don't, then we sit there and I give them space to help them figure that out. So remembering that when you ask someone what they think, when you look outside of yourself, you are outside of your personal power. You have literally taken the plug from your light source and your life source and been like, and just disconnected it. So I encourage you not to do that. I encourage you to put yourself in situations where you can be inspired, where you can tap in to a container where there are other insanely self-led entrepreneurs that are all going through the same thing. They're sharing creative ideas. They're mentioning what's worked for them. They're reminding everyone of like, yes, but let's do a thought perspective, or this is a mindset block. Like, this is really powerful because it allows you to stay in your power and to learn new tools versus thinking that someone else outside of you has all the answers. All right, private mentorship. We're halfway there. I'm conscious of your time, so we're going to speed it up a little bit. But if you're loving this episode, please share it, even if it's just on Instagram stories. Just like tell me what you loved about it, because it really does help this podcast grow and reach more people just like you. I know you're going to hear a little ad about this here in a minute, but I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for even listening and wanting to have these kind of conversations, because they really are the conversations that need to be had in order to move the needle forward. All right, so we're halfway there, and my halfway point is that private mentorship is required if you're looking to collapse years into months, months into weeks, and weeks into days. So this is a really great piggyback off of giving away your personal power. It wasn't until this year that I really was like, you know what, I'm going all in. And I invested heavily in myself, and I work in a private mentorship one-on-one. I'm very excited. She's going to be on the show later this season. It's going to be phenomenal. And it really does. There's some weeks where you're like, I don't really know what I got out of that. And then there's other weeks where you just needed to hear that one sentence, or you just needed that one spark of an idea. And the thing that I love about private mentorship is that essentially we are, as the mentees, we are the sparks. So we're like bebopping around. We got a little spark. And when we lean into private mentorship and we're like literally just kind of lean over a bit into their spark, it creates this massive flame. And so this is the best way I can explain it. So I know that the clients I've worked with that have had the fastest success and the I don't want to say the best success, but the fastest, the kind of like, holy smokes, we're doing this kind of roller coaster vibes. And this can happen financially. This could happen in your business. This could happen in your personal self-development journey. I mean, there's all different ways that this can look like. Are the ones that leaned into private mentorship, that said, you know what, I am worthy of this investment. I am walking with someone who has gone first, and I'm going to lean into their flame in order to create a bigger flame to propel me into my next level, into my next evolution. And so private mentorship is required if you're looking to collapse years into months, months into weeks, and weeks into days. Now, my next biggest lesson that I learned by taking a risk is to invest in long-term containers if you are committed to the long-term game. And what I mean by this is that jumping from program to mentor and expecting a high return on investment is treating yourself like a house flip. And a house flip often flops if your ego is running the show. And so again, in my own clients and the way that I've invested in myself, if I'm in a year-long container with one particular mentor, learning about one particular thing that I felt called to at that time, for me, it feels so much better, and I feel that I get the better results than if I'm just like bebopping around, grabbing this freebie, jumping into this really like cheap container. This thing was on sale. Let me snatch it up. Because what happens, and I'm proof, I have a list. I literally have a list of like 20 things that I'm like, okay, I need to catch up with this. I need to listen to this. And we don't actually get any value out of this because we don't learn through like osmosis. You know, we don't swipe our credit card and then boom, we all of a sudden get the result that we wanted. No, it's the commitment that we have in ourselves. It's the commitment we have in our growth. It's the commitment that we have in the collective that we're part of. I was just, again, speaking to my mentor the other day about this. I was like, I had this crazy life-changing thing that happened to me that was really horrible in the moment. And then all of a sudden, it's like fireworks are going off in like every single capacity in my life. And it's insane. And my human wants to be like, oh my God, it's too much to handle. I don't know where the crazy Kermit the Frog voice came from, but the human panics and freaks out. But then I'm like, of course this is happening. Of course this is amazing. Like, more of this, please, universe. Like, I know I can hold it. I know you're not going to send me anything that I cannot hold. Like, I literally cannot screw this up. So when I'm telling her this, she's laughing and she's like, we're all plugged into the energy together. Like, I'm experiencing the same thing. All her clients are experiencing the same thing. Like, it's so powerful and magical. So think about like the way that you date, think about the way you invest, think about the way you like get into different educational programs. Remember, like, if you're committed to the long game, get committed to someone who's going to walk with you. This whole like grab and go concept will make you feel really good in the moment where you're like, yeah, I got all the things, but you're not really going to see any results from them. Okay, the harder the moment, the more transformative the outcome. So when it comes to taking risk and you're like, this is really hard, I don't know if I'm going to make it, I don't know how to hold this, I wasn't expecting this, remember that the harder it feels, and I'm not saying we need to glamorize a hustle mentality. That's not what I'm saying at all. But let's say that, you know, it's been 5 years and you've decided not to renew with a client, and you feel all the feelings. There's the fear of, how am I going to replace the income? There's the fear of, or the jealousy of who's going to get the account. You know, there's the guilt that you couldn't do it for that budget they wanted. There's the anxiety of like, how is anyone going to take me seriously anymore? Just like all the feelings that come up. Just remember, like, ride the feelings, as I mentioned earlier, ride the feelings. Look at the seasons. You don't have to attach any meaning to them. But the thing that I want you to know is that the harder the moment is, the more transformative the outcome will be. And if you've been in any of my programs, I've talked about some things here or there that were really detrimental in my business and in my life, where there are moments of like, holy smokes, like, did that just happen? Did I just get that letter? Did that person just show up on my doorstep? Like, you know, I have some stories, guys. But it was in that moment after the first couple of weeks where, you know, your nervous system is really deregulated because it's like, whoa, nobody taught us this in quote unquote flower school. It's in this moment that you can be like, okay, you know what? I really learned what I needed to learn, or I now know I can hold whatever the next thing is, and without any fear whatsoever. So the harder the moment, the more transformative the outcome. Okay, circumstances don't affect long-term decisions unless you make up a story as to why that's true for you. So a circumstance is literally something that's happened that's outside of your control. And if you've been in the Hotel Florist Profit Method, you know I talk a lot about CTFAR. It's a psychology-backed exercise that literally talks about how your thoughts impact your results, but how you actually get there versus this like trendy little saying. And so circumstances you can never take back, you could never change, like they've happened in hindsight, they are history. But what happens is so many of us make that circumstance affect our long-term decision. So let's say like I lost a big client, quote unquote lost. I released a long-term client. I now can make that mean something about my floral design business, that we're no longer in business, that I'm officially done being a florist. I've now retired. Like I can make that one circumstance, the circumstance being that they have new ownership and they want a budget cut, and we're in a time of inflation, so I refuse to meet those requirements. I can make that situation define a long-term decision of my floral design business. So you have to be really careful here that you don't make up unnecessary stories as to why that's true for you. So coaching and mentorship are two different things. This is one big lesson that I have learned when taking a risk. And one brings change while another brings growth. So coaching is the change that you're looking for, whereas mentorship is the growth that you're desiring. So coaching example is like, I want to work with hotels. I don't know how to do that. Like, help me do that. And then all of a sudden you have the change that you're looking for. You want to change the way you sell. You want to change the way you get clients. You want to change the way that you make consistent income. That's coaching. Mentorship is, I'm looking for growth. I feel really capped out, or I feel unattached to my body, or I feel frustrated. A lot more like feelings. It's like, I know I need to walk with someone, or I'm looking for support, or I'm looking how to take this to the next level. I just can't tap into that. I don't know where to go from here. That's mentorship. Mentorship carries you through that, holds you through that, gives you the space to stay in your power and walk with someone on that path to grow into the next version of you. Timelines are boxes that we put our goals in to die. This one is a little cheeky, but totally true. So the best lesson I have learned by taking a risk is that if we have these timelines, where i.e. I hire this really expensive book editor, I must write my book in 2 months, I am literally putting my dream in a little box and I'm going to put some tape over it and it's going to die there because I might not write a book in 2 months. And just because I took the risk and I invested in myself and I hired an amazing editor should not be the reason why I'm compromising the integrity of my book, why I'm compromising the opportunity to heal, to compromise the time that it's required to reconnect with my inner child, so many things, like all the dreams to become a better leader. Oh, it has to happen in 2 months. This timeline is fixed. Therefore, this dream is dead. So timelines are boxes that we put our goals in to die. So if you're listening to this right now and you've been feeling really like poo-poo about something that hasn't happened by a certain timeline or a certain dollar amount or whatever the thing is, please just go ahead and roll down your window. If you're driving a car, please be safe and just take the timeline and throw it out the window. I promise you it will do you a world of good. Every day is meant to be different. So trust your timing and lean back to receive versus trying to control in order to get. And so what I mean by that is, especially if you're a woman, and especially if you are not on any type of birth control or anything like that, it is a known fact that your 28-day cycle is like a man's 24-hour cycle. So every day is different. And it depends like what phase of your cycle you're in. Now, also just in life, every day is different. I mean, the weather might be sunny one day and rainy next day. It depends on obviously where you live. Every day is different, meaning that one day was a super smooth and exciting day and the next day was kind of like a shit show and you're like, I don't know what's happening with my life. And you're like in this roller coaster and it's peaks and valleys. I want to normalize that. I want to normalize that every day is meant to be different and to trust your timing. And when I say trust your timing, again, we've just thrown out the time frame out the window. So, our dreams no longer have to go in the box and die because that's not a vibe. But we can trust the timing. We can lean back to receive versus trying to control in order to get. Because I don't know about you, but the last time that I've tried to control something, I don't really get what it is that I'm wanting. And also, nobody likes to be gotten. I don't like that feeling. I don't want to be gotten. I don't want to get things. I want to lean back and receive. So doing the work, I actually talked about this. I run a personal development brand for women, and I have a free community called the Millionaire's Codes. You can go and check it out on my personal Instagram page. But today I actually talked about that, of how, to lean back and receive is a completely different version than to like control to get. And so many of us show up thinking, okay, I've got the blueprints, I got the templates, I know what I need to go do, I know I need to go into the lobby and if you're watching this, I totally just had like Barbie arms. I need to go into the lobby and I need to pick up the phone. I need to do all the things. And then you're like, why isn't it happening? Versus, okay, how would my life change if I literally were to make consistent $5,000 months? How would my life change if I worked with this hotel? Like, what does it look like? Am I waking up with coffee in bed because I'm able to hire an employee that takes care of that? Am I more present in my marriage? Am I taking a vacation? Like, what does it look like for me? Because here's the thing, we got to feel it. We got to feel the why. We don't always need to know the how. We got to feel the why. We need to know the what. And in that moment, you will receive what it is that you need to do next. Like, you will get the steps that you need to do next, and trust that process. Because I'm not saying when you lean back and receive, you're not doing the work. Absolutely, you're doing the work. You're just doing the work in a completely different energy, and you're doing a different type of work. All right, guys, we're almost finished. I have 2 more big lessons, best lessons that I learned by taking a risk. Where are you feeling unsupported, and how can you offer that support to yourself right now? So let's say that a big risk I took was investing 5 figures into personal mentorship this year. And let's say I get off a call with my mentor, and obviously I expect, because this is something I still am deconditioning, working through, I expect her to fix something. I expect to feel better when I'm off the call, because that's what I paid for, right? Quote unquote paid for. However, it doesn't always work like that, because she might tell me something that in the moment has landed in the subconscious, but in the conscious, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to hear that right now. Or yeah, that doesn't really help me right now. Like, just totally deflects it. It's not her job to fix anything. It is my job that in the moment where I get off the call and I'm like, I feel so unsupported right now. That is not how I wanted to be seen. That I don't feel like I was heard at all. Then I am able to say, well, how can I support myself better in this moment? How can I see myself? How can I hear myself? Because it is up to us, one, to go first, as I mentioned before, and to be radically responsible with the way that we show up in this world. So we're going to trust that we made the investments in the people that are going to radically and wildly support us as we grow at hyper speed, collapsing the years to months to weeks, and the weeks to days. But we're also going to be radically responsible with the decision that we made to hire them and the decision that we've made to lead ourselves and to support ourselves and not expect people to fix us. And in the moment that we feel unsupported, we learn how to support ourselves. So that was a huge lesson that I learned. And last but not least, the best lesson I learned by taking a risk was that success doesn't come from crossing T's and dotting I's. It comes to those who can walk with the fear and to play in what if and why not. I recently did a post. You can go back on my Instagram. You can see it's the one with all the hydrangeas. And I talked about someone who recently asked me, how do you know when to go big? So this person has a business. He just happened to be an Uber driver for a hot second, and I had no car. So he became my personal driver, and we got to know each other very, very well. And he asked me, he's like, I've got this really great thing going, but I'm getting like these opportunities that really scare me. He's like, how do you know when to go big? What he's really asking is, how do you know when you're done playing small? Because none of us like to play small. Remember, we're weirdos that take unnecessary risks, financial risks. So it comes from walking with fear and doing it anyway. And I know the first time I heard that, that really bothered me, because I was like, well, of course you can say that. You're like a multimillionaire. Of course you can say that. You've like created a brand. But because we forget what happened behind the scenes the past 1, 2, 10 years ago, like it's compounded courage. That's really what it is. And we don't become confident by thinking we're confident. We become confident by showing up, by walking with fear, by doing it anyway, by like each time putting like a little quarter of courage, a little quarter of courage into the machine, and it slowly builds and it slowly compounds. And so the real difference between those who we deem successful and not successful is that some of us think it's because they have some mysterious magic spell that we don't know, or a template or a blueprint that we need to go be part of. And I'm not saying those things don't make things go faster, but what I'm saying is success doesn't come from crossing T's and dotting I's, where you're like, okay, I made a beautiful website. Okay, I hired my first employee. Okay, I have my first corporate client. Yay! It doesn't come from that. It comes from those who can walk with the fear and then play in what if and why not. So what if this works? What if it doesn't work? But what if it does work? And why not? I mean, nobody's done this before, but why not? Why not me? Why not? Why can't I be the first one? Why can't I go first? Why can't I be the one? Like, what if and why not? So today's episode, I am actually really hands down so proud of. I think it's been one of my favorite ones today. I know y'all loved the very first episode of this season. If you haven't listened to it, go and check it out. It was a really, I want to say, I don't even have it in front of me, but basically the 10 lessons I learned from taking a pause, and a lot of you said it was super helpful. So I have without a doubt today that you're going to love these best lessons learned by taking a risk. Know that there is this silver lining It is required to take a risk. It is required to invest in yourself, whether that's financially or time-wise. Like those are your two kind of like assets that you get to play with to really expand. And know that though risk is required, there's so much beauty on the other side, and it's included in the lessons that we learned. So I hope you love this episode, and I will see you again very, very soon on the internet. Take care and keep blooming.